Morning, everyone. It's Richard Miller here, calling from Australia. You're never not here, and we're talking with friends, and we're talking with friends all over the globe. So basically, what are we doing? We're asking, what is it that makes life sweet? And is there a key? I mean, maybe we should ask if there's a lock, right? And why do we need a key? What's the nature of the lock? So what makes life sweet? And I guess we all have our theories, and we all have our theories why life is sour. And I don't know, I won't make a big introduction. I'll just say, so this morning we're with Carlos Boisselle, and outside of Los Angeles. And so hello, California. Hi, Carlos.
Hi, Richard. Hi, everyone.
So how do you like my idea? We're speaking about what makes life sweet.
It sounds delicious.
That's what we do, right?
Yeah, it sounds delicious.
A little bit. You have a personality, right? And you're definitely
Of course.
Carlos. And
Of
I'm
course.
Richard. And it's
Of
different,
course.
right? And now we're saying, like, we're not the author of our personality, or we cannot be the author of our personality, or could we? I'm saying I hope I can. I would like to author my personality, or at least have some say in a little part of it. Give me a little angle, anyhow.
Yes, but we can author it any way we want, but we only have a limited, which is obvious. I mean, it's obvious if you just look at the way the world is, most of the dysfunction of the world. We are taking authorship of exactly what we imagine, and most of the time it's not working out. Most of the time there's suffering and misery, and most of the time one wants to get out of that. I see. And the remedy for getting out of that can now be the loss of authorship, so that one doesn't have the burden of all of the things that didn't belong to them to begin with, that we just took on.
Yeah.
Just took it on. And didn't question whether it was working or not. Yeah. So all of the suffering happens to push us in, this is my experience, to push us in a corner to make us see that this is not working.
Yeah.
And incomprehensibly, somehow, we keep going back to what's not working. So therefore, there's a certain amount of surrender that naturally takes place for one that really wants to be free. Because one has to be free of the ideas wrapped around all of them, so that the ideas can function properly. I'm not saying that any belief is wrong. I'm not saying that we don't have the power to author and all this kind of stuff. What I'm saying is that it seems to me that to let the primary authorship be the awareness and the power of attention that we give to something, and our own individual power to make that so. And usually, it doesn't work out.
Yeah. Okay. Now let me ask you this now, because you said I'm not saying that any belief is wrong.
No.
So but could we say that some beliefs are empowering and some beliefs are disempowering because they impinge upon our effectiveness? Okay. And
why
so
not?
We could say that, right?
Of course. I mean, one can say whatever one wants.
Well, I mean, is it backed up by our experience? We could say that the moon is made of green cheese.
One can say what one wants,
Yeah.
But where is the saying coming from?
Okay, now let's ask this then. You said that a lot of times we're doing authoring, and we only have a limited spectrum or a limited palette of colors that we can author with. And you're saying that most of the times it doesn't work out. So then if I could just go right back to the very beginning of our conversation, where we said that things are working out and things are not working out, but our attention is on either one or the other more than the other, you know? And why would our attention be where things don't work out instead of have our attention where things do work out? And I think it's a joy when things work out, you know? I mean, and can I be an author of my personality where things do work out? And can I actually keep my attention there and actually build the appearance where it seems like things are working out more and more and more? Is that
I don't see why. I don't see why. I don't see why not.
You know, let's do it. I say, let's do it. That's my rallying cry. You know. Come on, join me and let's do it.
I used to love when things went wrong. And to be honest with you, I used to love when things went wrong because it was a challenge. You know, it was a challenge. Yeah. So if something went wrong that didn't meet my expectation or whatever, or how I wanted it to be, it was an opportunity. I don't know how this happened, but naturally an opportunity to look deeper. And naturally an opportunity to give up, which is what I was not recognizing for so long.
Well, if I hear you right, you know, if I hear you right, because you're saying that when things go wrong, well, when things go wrong is an expectation. The expectation is what creates things went wrong, right?
Yes.
And then you're saying it gives you a chance to give it up. And so what are you giving up? You're giving up your expectation. But it doesn't mean you're giving up your trying or giving up your attempts or giving up your authoring power. It's just giving up, you know, so many people say, you know, do your best and then deliver the results to God. Let God have the results. And so then there's no expectation that is that little poison pill that you're talking about. But you might even, you know, when things go right, that's a challenge too, because you can say, oh my God, now I can really contribute. Because, because before I thought I could only take a little steps and I was a little guy, but that worked out so slick. I'm going to include my friends in this next one.
Right.
So it's always a challenge if you want to take it, you know.
And it can be fun, you know, if one is not burdened by the result, whether it works out or not. Yeah, it can be fun to. Well, it is fun. It's fun to meet everything, and even when the conditioning and the current says it's all wrong, it's all bad. I don't see that at all. I don't see anything as being bad by my authorship. I know that there were things in my life and are things in my life that are potentially bad. Obviously, that's life. That's consciousness. But I didn't get that. That little nibble of understanding by believing that I earned. You know, I met the things I knew I had to, you know. And I got that from the failures. I was able to see that from the failures. And then I was able to see that I was going to them to see, and then it just kept going deeper like that. And then, you know, the attention started toward awareness, started outweighing the attention toward present after, being good enough, and all of these other things, making it look like it's supposed to.
Yeah.
You know, meeting all of the definitions.
You know, like you said, everything is awareness, right? Because no matter what, we're aware. We notice everything we notice. We're aware of, right? And so there's something we're noticing all the time. So then the awareness is maybe narrow and maybe wide, you know, but it's always in gear.
It's always in gear. Yeah,
yeah,
that's It's always in gear, and that's the point.
And somehow it takes different focuses, you know, it takes different
Yes.
focuses. And then lots of times it seems like our thoughts and our feelings and maybe even our actions arise all at the same time, right? So
Yes.
then even neuroscience is proving that, because they measure your brain and then they give you a cognitive thing where you can decide, and then they measure your emotion centers, and
Oh, really?
they both fire at the same time.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
Then they're kind of diffusing cause and effect, right?
Yes.
But yet, where do they
That
both
makes
come
sense.
from? You know, they come from, for me, they come from a worldview. They come from a context that I've set about how I live my life and what I believe about my life. And I didn't probably even adopt that, you know, consciously. It just kind of, it came through imitation, of imitating the anger level and the frustration level of those around me, my parents and my grandparents, and you know, and they imitated their parents and grandparents and their neighbors and society and their boss. Everybody imitated everybody else in a way, not on purpose, but that's just the way humans are. That, you know, we call it resonance, right? We resonate with the vibration. We could call it a vibration, a pure vibration, but it's just like our tension level. You know, how tight our body is, and however we were born, in the womb we were born in, that's kind of like our ground level of relaxation. And Mom was pretty tense at that time, you know. We think we're supposed to be wound up like a spring, a clock spring,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
I think that's natural, right?
That's kind of the way I am, really.
Yeah.
Animated.
Yeah. Yeah.
Artist.
So we don't have to
a little
personalize
eccentric.
it, you know.
A little eccentric.
Yeah. Are you a visual artist or a musician, or both?
Both.
Yeah. So even the creativity of a new song, you know, and then you'll make a new song and say that was not all that good. So then, you know, the so-called failure, right? And then, but it won't stop you. And then you'll put a few more touches on it, and you'll say, "Darn it, people are liking this one. It must be pretty good."
There was a time, Richard, where I slit my throat for every piece. Yeah.
No wonder you like to go to awareness. You don't have that many throats to slit.
I tried cutting off my tongue, but it didn't work out.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just trying to, you know, share what the sweetness of life, you know, that's how we started out.
Me
right?
too.
The sweetness of life is kind of like a happiness in all our doings, right? And then, in a way, that happiness in all our doings has to be a focus, right? And then we focus on what we believe in, right? We believe there's priorities in life, and that the hotter priorities have to be the first focus.
Checklist.
Yeah.
I feel like we're doing the checklist.
And maybe it's just a reverse of that. Maybe the cooler, you know, the cooler priorities should be the first, and the hotter ones, we should just let them burn out, right? In some cases, we know that we have to do a few things to survive, and we can do them. But if we're doing them with a big charge on them, maybe let's try doing them with less of a charge on them. And then that's just the sweetness of what I call the sweetness of life. It's so simple that there's really no event that it takes. You don't have to wait for an event like so-called awakening.
Yes.
And then, I don't know. Those that have an awakening, probably they, I don't know how it happened, that they have a discontinuity, that they used to be tight and tense, and then it was so painful that they popped out of it. And therefore, they teach that don't go back there. You know, that's all anxiety ridden. But I'm saying, no, just focus on the part that's not anxiety and stay there, you know, because that's happening right now in your apparent world. Whereas awakening is something that's not happening right now in your apparent world. Awakening is some kind of a concept that you're taking on board. And you'll say, hey, maybe
awakening
I'll get there tomorrow.
It's like a becoming. It's a becoming. Going from one place to the other, yes? There's really... Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say a simple thing. Sometimes I like to go real slow, you know, and just speak out of silence.
Yes.
I was just honoring the silence that we were just having there, and I was just saying that that's a really great way to share.
And it's pretty rare.
Yeah, with really no pressure on trying to come up with some words, but words are there, you know, and then that's more like what you're talking about, just coming from awareness, and then somehow allowing those pauses and that silence, and seeing the beauty in it. What arises first before words is just the feeling, like we can feel each other.
Mm-hmm.
I guess what happened for me is when I noticed that I could somehow choose less anxiety, choose a thought pattern that produced less anxiety, then I kind of lost my fear of distinctions. And then I started to honor distinctions and honor words as actually creative forces in our life. And not only words as anxiety producing effects in our life. And kind of where I like to go nowadays.
Honestly, I don't really, for myself, feel much anxiety anymore, or anything that I could call anxiety, because the minute I recognize an anxious moment, you know, coming, or a condition, I recognize it later as a conditioned anxiety immediately. So it's almost as though it wasn't even there to begin with. And once again, the only thing I can give credit to is the silence. Howsoever it happened, you know, whether I took ownership or whatever, I decided to create a doomsday silence, or whether I decided to have the courage to move in the way of sages in that moment. Didn't matter. And I realized really quick how silly all that moves. So the feeling of anxiety, when I recognize it, whether I recognize it in my own presence or in the presence of other beings, it might flare up a momentum of biological, you know, animation, but not a genuine feeling of anxiety or anything that I can call anxiety or a problem. Hard to explain. I've watched myself tell someone to shut up and not be affected, you know, at all. And it's totally stunned because the conditioning to react naturally fell off. And I realize the only thing I can give credit to is who's making the choice to be happy and free, you know, to step into that primary position that we all are, and to stay with the awareness and that to do nothing else, to do nothing about anything else, because that was the direct way and the most challenging way for a person like me with all of my stuff. So it kind of worked backwards for me. But the urge to share, just a sense of happiness and peace and well-being, I don't know where that comes from either. I don't even know or think that I do it right or say it right. I just know that the urge is there. And it's not anything I can blame for having that urge or given, you know, exaltation, because then I would have to include everything and everybody, even all the dark stuff and all the bad stuff, because that's where I wake up the most, honestly. So I agree with the teachings of meeting one's self everywhere, no matter what's going on, and remaining as the source of power from which all of the events play out in my life. You know, I don't have any control over how it plays out in anyone else's life. But it definitely feels good to come to a space, finally, to where, like you were saying earlier, choices are easy. They don't feel like choices. It's kind of like when one has to take a shit, one gets up and goes to the pot. If something needs to be taken care of that seemed like a huge responsibility before, now it's the same. It's no different from the urgency to get up and evacuate when I need to get up and bite to eat when I'm hungry. It's the same background, no matter how animated the being presents itself, good or bad, or how it's supposed to look. That was my biggest thing, how it's supposed to look. That was my biggest argument. So I played a lot of games to break that in the eyes of others. And I wound up breaking myself in the same process. It wound up breaking me as well. So I can't really say who, or how, or why, or when. And I really wouldn't be able to put someone's picture behind me effectively without putting everyone's picture there. To say this is my teacher, you know. I can say this one is my biggest influence, but I would have to put Bill there, right next to Ramana. And all the rest. So
I can really relate to that, you know. I can really relate to how much we can learn through an intimate relationship.
Oh, yeah.
And then somehow a lot of it is just in how we can just behold the other without judgment. You know, if we can somehow get out of the idea that someone's at fault, even ourselves. We can say, oh, I'm at fault for this, I'm at fault for that. No. You know, get away from any kind of blame and just kind of behold the situation. I mean, It's amazing how much learning there is in seeing ourselves through the eyes of the other. If that other is just has a pure view of us.
Yeah, in a sense, our direct relationship is probably our primary teaching. I know it has been for me, because whatever I was complaining about is what I was reinforcing by complaining about in my personal relationship, for example. And then I realized, oh, that floats out to everything else. You know. And it was really easy to see in a moment of stopping. Whether the stop was contrived or not. Still happened. So that's why I say, I honestly can't agree with anything, but I can't really disagree either. I can say this worked for me, that didn't. And it seems to corroborate the source being awareness itself, giving power to everything else. I'm not going to say, oh, it's awareness. Oh, your awareness. But it seems to be the closest we can get to a no design idea in order to recognize the beauty of the design. For example, like as an artist, I started off being an artist of all light colors. Everything was light. There were no dark strokes. There was no depth. And there was something off about that. And then somebody mentioned it, but in a different way, in a totally different way. And then I recognized it in my harrowing experience of trying to wake up and stay awake and do the part and all that, and not deny my other stuff. Blah, blah, blah. Let me put a dark stroke in here and express some of this. It's like the way it's supposed to look. Wow, all the depth that came into the color. So at that moment, that was my teacher. At that moment, that was the insight of teaching, which I can't give credit to anything. But maybe the light of the sages that lit my fire, and then the rest is life. You see, and even coming to a space of wanting to be free, because there was no other choice. Dead or free. Walking dead or free. So in a sense, it's all kind of disgrace that pushed my head under the water. And grace destroyed all of my light pieces and turned, gave depths.
Yeah, one time we were speaking of expectation, right? And then you had the expectation that the awakening was all light and fairy dust, right? And then
but I learned differently.
And then you realized the richness of a few dark strokes, But at the same time, you didn't make all dark paintings, right? With no light paintings.
No, just strokes, a little bit here, a little bit there.
Yeah.
Yes.
So then the darkness is okay, but it's kind of how long you're stuck in the dark. If you get stuck in the darkness, it's not so okay. But darkness that comes and goes is just part of life and great, and it's a great expectation because there's nothing lost or nothing missing. Nowhere to get to, right? And just like your email, come as you are, and how does your email go?
Come as you are, be as you are.
Come as you are, be as you are, right? And so then that includes a few dark strokes, right? But don't hang around in those dark strokes. Don't make only dark paintings.
Yes. Maybe I should switch the acronym. Be as you are, come as you are. because I was coming as
Right.
I was, believe me.
Okay, that's cool. Because be as you are, you're already doing that, and come as you are is just don't be embarrassed.
Yes.
Show up, show up. That's
Show
great.
up. Yes. Yes.
To me, show up has been so important. I never used to show up even 6, 7 years ago. I was an anonymous guy, and
Yeah.
uh,
Same
and then
thing.
I'm trying to get people to show up, and it's kind of like there's a good movie. There's a good 1 minute YouTube on it. It's called Herding Cats. It's kind of like it's kind of like herding cats in order to try to get people to show up. Holy
Yeah.
cow.
Give them some shock value.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, at least show up to my movies. Maybe they show up in different way, in their own way, but to show up, like to come
Yes.
online and do hangouts and stuff like that, it's kind of like a challenge sometimes.
Huge. I've been chicken to try it actually, and I've been chicken about sharing um, quite a bit because of the way it's supposed to look. But then there's this burn to share, so it's that I really want to share authentically if I'm going to do it, and that's sort of my motivation is you're going to share authentically, share from your experience, or wait, but don't contrive waiting, which was what was going on for a while. And then I said, well, time came. We waited long enough. That time came.
I was
Time to
lucky
do.
because I had a way to fit in there because I just featured others, so I was able to share without any profession, without saying I'm awakened or I've got something to teach. I was able to do that by just starting to share others, and then it seemed like
Yeah, that's what.
I got to be a public figure by that, whether I like it or not, without any kind of like declaration of who I am or what I know, and that was an easy, comfortable way to slide myself into it.
Yes, that's the way I would have to do it too. I'm unauthored. Just got the art pieces, no books, no notoriety. Don't even know if I'm enlightened. Don't care. Not worried about it.
Yeah.
Not worried about it. I just know that there's a sense of happiness, peace, all those words that come without a following, really, that are just there. It's way more often than not. It's definitely the substratum of my experience.
Wouldn't it be true that that's who you are now, and that you don't need any going to silence or anything?
Don't
Silence
need anything.
Silence just occurs, right?
Yeah.
In the
It just
melee
happens,
of that whole who you are, silence is just a big part of it, and either not considering your doing maybe is part of that silence, but it's not really a necessary part of the formula. It might sound like that, but then
It's not necessary.
If somebody says let's make a plan, you say okay, let's make a plan then.
Yeah. Maybe we can make a plan not to make a plan. Yeah, I mess with people like that. Or let's talk about silence.
Oh yeah, that's kind of
because
right, that kind of wrecks the whole thing, right?
Yeah, okay, well, what is silence? Is anything ever really silent? Is anything ever really totally shut down, quiet, not doing?
Yeah. But the silence you're talking about is always here. So then, is anything ever not silent?
They're both just as effective. It's all coming from what comes before silence, even. You see, and of course, you just do a hair flip on that one. So, in a sense, it's really ridiculous but it's fun. You see, to spread the joy, but not to give them a way to do it, but to get people to recognize more and more in their direct experience, even if it starts off horrible, to just trust that there is just something that doesn't change. That is definitely, we can use the words coming in their conditioning, if it's control, that's in control of this, which is the awareness. And then just go from there, kind of like that. Because once one recognizes that, then silence, no difference. Or taking a shit or sharing that sign. It's the same word. It's not the same words, but it's coming from the same energy. You know, an urge that wants to evacuate peace, well-being. You know, in a sense, I know it sounds, but it you know, it feels that way sometimes. You know, it just wants to, or do this to some people. You know, but then you go, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, but it's all the same substratum. You're happy and free. That's there somewhere in there. It's in there somewhere. If you're not happy and free, you're aware that you're not happy and free, and that you can be happy and free. Or you're aware, you know.
You know, isn't that what you're doing? You're just demonstrating an ebullient happiness and innocence that people love. You know, I mean, I'm loving it, and so then that's so effective for you. And then sometimes you want to conk them on the head, you know, but you know,
yeah,
you're just seeing that you're doing it on it in a really, you know, so wholehearted and from really caring and empathy, and say, you guys, you don't have to feel that bad.
yeah, yeah, and then to raise my hand and go, look, I did that, you know, and to say, hey, I know, yeah, I did that, for example, you know, in my own way, and it led to this. It led to the same place, the same complaint. You know, for example, I didn't get what I wanted. You know, or I had an expectation, or conditioning overtook me and I didn't realize it. You know, the only way that I've ever been able to see those things was by seeing them. Not by hearing them or, you know, or
Well,
doing them either.
Isn't it valuable that people give you a hint, though?
Yeah, of course. Of course. But in the end, one must see it for oneself, of course. You know, people say that all the time. Oh, what else to see it for themselves, you know? Well, of course. You know, for Christ's sake, of course one has to see it for oneself. Come to me with how to see it for oneself, for example. Come with your own experience. And my experience, and this is part of my, you know, this had been part of my crux of sharing, now it's less and less matters, has always been it's been coming from the opposite place, from darkness to light, you know, meeting that and then climbing the ladder. You know, even weak, slipping down, breaking all the legs, you know, having to idea construct them back, you know, everything the hard way. In spite of Ramana, you know, in spite of 20 years of flipping through everything. I'm telling you, everything. I always say Ramana because he sticks out. But it's not because he's more awake, more special than any one of us, which is what he was saying. But to come with an expression to another, coming from the same place, which is nowhere. He came from a cave. I'm coming from a cave too, a dark cave. But the times are different. I live in Long Beach. My rent is $800 a month. Yeah. I live around a bunch of thugs. I live in ghetto land. There's no place for satsang in my idea. That doesn't mean there's no place for satsang, for example. So this has been my direct experience with trying to share, for example. was learning in the seeing that whether I speak or not, sharing is happening no matter what. Whether I help my neighbor out, give her a ride somewhere in her car, because I don't have one, but she's disabled. Just like nothing. Oh yeah, come on, let's go do it. Satsang. Because we get to share with each other's presence without an idea about how that's supposed to be done. So for me, in my perception, it still fulfills satsang, being a normal human being, meeting my responsibilities, getting to smoke a cigarette if I want to smoke a cigarette, or have a Coca-Cola and not stay vegetarian for the next week. Yeah. Because I do things like that, but I don't do them on a rituals. You know, I don't do them ritualized, and people come to me and go, "Oh, I thought you were a vegetarian." No, I didn't say that. I said I don't eat meat all the time because it doesn't agree with my system. That's all. Real simple. You know, it's not like, okay, now I'm taking it to a space of awakening, enlightenment. Okay. What are you doing? What are we doing to remove what's already there, or to eclipse or cover what's already there, and then leave it at that? You know, just leave it at that. Not how did I get there? Why is it wrong? You know, let those things arise if that's what's meant to arise. But we don't know that initially. We just know that something doesn't feel right, for example. So, just to be able to meet that and not spiritualize it or strategize it, for example, and just meet it. Okay, something doesn't feel right now. Now,
let me
and just rest with that. Okay, go ahead.
Let me ask you a question, because I was noticing, and I was sharing that I noticed your satsang is really a joy and innocence that's infectious, right? But later you were sharing that you have walked through some very dark valleys.
Oh yeah.
And so then somehow you know about dark valleys, and that you can get out of them. You can go through them.
Absolutely.
And you can actually be damaged by them, but also you can be uninjured by them. You can see that you're uninjured somehow. Your memory is of a damage, but the right now fact, the right here, right now fact is that you're not damaged. And if you don't reconstruct that, if you're not reconstructing that memory and the feeling of it. And are you able to talk to some pretty dark people and actually be very inspiring on that level? Or if you aren't now, I'm sure you will be when you give yourself to it.
Can I be honest with you, Richard? And hopefully you'll believe me.
Yeah, please.
I've given some of the best satsangs in the darkest places, hooped up, souped up, and have gotten activity to stop completely by sharing the word that somebody asked because they were curious. So I know that's why I think maybe you're helping me to discover something here with this chat. That's why I think sometimes I just have this deep urge, because I feel like if I can do that, anybody, really any judgment can, because I may have grown up, and I may have been born into the world with natural gifts, abilities, maybe even a prodigy, because all of my art stuff comes natural, self-taught, everything self-taught. So I came with some mastership already, but I was adopted, so I got scooped up as a baby, and then I went through several different conditionings. I lived in several different families, and I was pulled from one to the other. So I had enormous issues, abandonment issues, rejection issues, unworthiness, to the real big time. So, but my conditioning was to be a perfect child, and I was. When I finally got adopted at the age of 14 years old, I was I was so happy just to be, you know, I excelled at everything, but it was a cover-up just to be able to stay where I love, you know, not to be pulled away from that family and put into another one. You know, so there was always this performance going on with me. Otherwise, I'm, you know, as a conditioning from childhood, from baby, that I was being pulled out of families as a hard-to-place problem child. So coming out of that, I had to go to all the places that weren't addressed. So growing up, everything, all of my problems just went to another family. I have no idea about any of my history, my biological history. Only things, stories that were told to me. Pretty outlandish ones too, but maybe another time. But the conditioning in the consciousness was designed, seems to be designed for a no way back. Oh, this one's burning too bright. Throw them in. Family, all this kind of stuff. Lots of psychological testing, probes on my head. So anyway, I came out of it when I left my adopted family because they were the craziest of all to go to college out of state. That's when the real problems started because I was on my own. And this was 18, going to 19 years old. And then I fell into hardcore drug addiction, really hardcore. And I went through them all. Except for heroin. Didn't touch heroin. But that's why I say, can I be honest with you? I went through all of them. And nobody helped me get out of them. Deliberate, you know, to help me. So that's what I say, why I say that I'm not using metaphors picked up. They're actual experiences for me. Like I actually come from places darker than caves. You know, I've almost been murdered a couple of times. Guns in my head. Butcher knife, huge butcher knives in my back. You know, I've been hit by a car 3 times in the course of my life. Somebody spit on me walking down the sidewalk. Happy and joyous and free. You know, all the classic sketch, you know, of what might happen to somebody. But I don't tell the story because I come from that dark space. You see, I fell so hard. I thought I was going to die. I thought I was going to die crackhead or something. And I know from my own experience, the fact that I'm sitting here right now, I'll be 46 next month. There's an incomprehensible sense of well-being. It's not always happy. It's not always joyous. It's not always free. But it's always well. It's always okay. It always treats everything else like a side dish, naturally. I don't go for peas and carrots as my main dish anymore. If you get what I mean.
Yeah, I really get it. You know, like.
Yeah, it was hard.
Yeah.
And I'm almost in tears. It was really hard.
Yeah. Yeah, but with all the darkness, there's got to be an immense gratitude that I'm even still here. It's an amazement, right?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm still alive, really.
Yeah, that I'm sitting here in this moment. I've got sparkly goosebumps, you know, on my skin, because I don't feel the misery of what's happened anymore, the suffering. I only feel the gratitude, Richard. I only feel immense. Immense warmth and gratitude for all beings. All beings. Because I know what I went through. And I've been at the hand of murderers. I tried to kill myself. I mean, all of it. I was sucking on a glass stick for years. I ain't afraid to say it. And I ain't afraid to share. That anyone can get, if I can get out of that by surrendering to the power that allowed that to be, absolutely anyone can. Anyone. I'm screaming, anyone! And I don't know how to go against the current of the philosophy and spirituality and books and the teachers and the teachings, and to come from my own experience and say, look, I was there, I took the recommendation, and little by little, step by step, it all just happened by itself. Yeah, it all just happened. I don't want to say it happened by itself, but it happened until it happened by itself. Is that a good way of saying it? Okay. All of this happened until it happened by itself, because in my heart, I was born awake, you know. I was born that way, and I've always had an affection, and I had to admit all this to myself. That it wasn't the fact that I didn't trust people, that I didn't trust. I trusted everyone to a ridiculous fault. You know, it's not the fact that I was angry and mad at people. I loved everyone to a ridiculous fault, and because they didn't love me back, then I became angry. Something like this. You know, I gave to a ridiculous fault because I had to, otherwise I was going to be taken away. All the way up to my adulthood, you know, all the way up through my 30s, 40. Right up to 40, maybe more than that. So, here, take this painting for free. Gorgeous works of art. This person doesn't pay me any mind. I wonder why. I did all this. So I got to see how, right down to the last transparency, how even the struggle to stay awake and to be enlightened and all of that is only going to lead one to, or can potentially be another trap to lead one to this kind of dissatisfaction, for example. I lit this person's fire, and now they ignore me, or I said something different that was misunderstood. Because it was the same thing I said, but it was said at a time that the person didn't like it. So now I became the demon. Why? So now I can barely lift my hands and go like that without, you know, without the breath of fresh air putting me back down. Going, wait a minute, that ain't worth it.
I truly thank you for sharing the way you have. You're really powerful.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity. Without attention this way, I'm useless. Aren't we all? So I don't disagree with broadcasting at all.
No, anyone should be really honored to be in your presence because you're exceptional.
Oh wow! Thank you. I'm honored to be here, just to be able to say something useful, or maybe just to be here. Yeah. Don't know how useful it is.
Well, that's a foundation for you know, for whatever happens in your life. I don't know. You have such a foundation, and such a broad foundation to really meet people where they're at, right? And meet them in a way where, like, with such compassion and such empathy, but also knowing that it's possible, you know. Knowing that,
yeah, I think that's the hinge.
It can happen
that's the key.
It happens by itself. Okay, I'm going to tell you it happens by itself and all that, but I mean, whatever I get into and however I I explain this in the future, and each time learning and learning.
Yes.
I have the foundation and the broadness to really meet anyone, and
I feel that way because I don't feel like I have anything to teach. I know, and once again, I know it sounds cliche, but honestly, I don't really feel like I have anything to teach anyone that's not already, that they're not already. Like, for example, it's obvious that we're all aware. We may not be awake to the fact that we're all aware, but we're still aware. It doesn't change the fact that we're still aware. So in that way, I don't feel like I have anything to teach.
Well, I mean, in a way that works in a spiritual venue.
But yeah,
But when you go out on the street, it does not really very effective.
Right, exactly. So this is what I wanted to say. It took me a second to get for it to all come in, but what you said in the beginning, in the very, very, very beginning of our chat, when we were having all this so-called problems with the machine, about what makes it. I think you said what makes it possible for a person, or what allows a person to correct me if I'm saying it wrong. What allows a person to know that they're awake, or to be awake, or to be happy and free? Did you say something? Did you ask something?
Well,
like that
I was just saying that it seems like a turning point in everyone that claims awakeness is that they're willing to say it, right? And that they're willing.
Yeah, and what allows them to say it? That's what you said. What allows them to say it?
I think you said it was a focus. They're focusing on the awakeness part more than they're focusing on the unawakeness part.
Yeah, can I change? Can I change it?
Go ahead.
Can I change my perception?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I change, please? Because honestly, I didn't really know how to answer that question in the beginning. It kind of stumped me right from the beginning, because I thought to myself, well, here we go. That's why I said, aren't you bored with that question? Or aren't you bored with awakening? Because there's so many answers I could fulfill that, and I felt the idea of contrived answers coming through. And not that it didn't get answered or discussed properly, but I think I have the answer now to that question, which should help me to discover through this chat the possibility. What allows you to know your question, the very possibility, and that it's been experienced by so many others. The possibility that has been experienced by so many others that people talk about. Other than that, we might just be dealing with textbook kind of spirituality. And I think that's kind of where spirituality is immensely and hugely valuable. But I would say not until one can, I would say the true value of it would not really be recognized or realized or embodied until one can come to a place where one can say, that was an invention to get me to recognize what was already here. And all of the pastor sayings about, focus on this, everything has a core, like they have a core representation that doesn't seem to belong to anyone. It's just being said in it's just being said in a different way. So, in a sense, I think the only authorship that can be given so that one has color and personality and depth and all that kind of stuff, in actual presence, would be to not ever need to use spirituality or any mechanism. For example, I have a really whiny neighbor, and she fixed a picture of what you were describing earlier, just to the T. I mean, really ridiculous. And, you know, I find it extraordinary that she does not affect me, because in the past I would say, why are you focusing on that? You know, I was using all the spiritual, and they all sounded, and they worked for a second, but every time she returns, it's with the, she starts with a wine. She's on all kinds of meds, real dysfunction. But this is what I grew up with, this is what I'm used to. So in the relaxation of just seeing, for example, which is what I'm kind of promoting here in this moment, I'm able to see, well, for Christ's sake, that's what you've been around your whole life, Carlos. Why are you surprised? Why are you trying to change it? You know, all of this coming up naturally, spontaneously, which is enough. I don't have to slit my throat now, and I don't have to cut off my tongue. Now I can have a laugh. Now I can enjoy it, and I can meet her with a smile and relaxed pose, and it changes, and it changes. And to me, that's satsang. You know, to me, that's authentic sharing from presence to presence. Now, how to promote that, how to make that popular, I don't know. Yeah, that's sort of it's sort of still a, you know, a contingency, or a contention, not a contingency, but a contention. Especially in these parts. I think right now this is the best representation that you know, what is already present for me, which is my presence and my eagerness and joy to be present for whatever's in my immediate attention. My 2 cats, my dog, my whiny neighbor, my bill, you know, and then everything that comes with all that. You know, and then my stuff. Gotta get this art thing done. Gotta get this website. Gotta get this book that's been sitting for 10 years. Are you gonna put that together or what? About your harrowing experiences? Because it's good. It's good. It's really good. But
Thank you so much for this openness. You know, it's so valuable and so received on this end, and I'm sure.
Oh, thanks for letting me do it. Thanks for letting me do it.
Feel you're a hollow conduit, you know, to the, well, what you said, to the source of silence. So, really a pleasure this time. You know, I mean, I really feel like I've got to know you in a way, way deeper way, and
that was one of my hopes, that we can connect a little deeper.
Yeah, totally my pleasure.
Pleasure's mine.
Carlos Boisselle. Our resident Frenchman.
There's another. You're mistaken, my friend. I'm Puerto Rican through and through. Boricua all the way. Remember, I'm adopted.
Okay.
I was taken on by some pretty amazing people. Yes.
Beautiful. So thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you.